Of course, I don't consent about to say you may begin.
The United Nations was founded in 1945 in the aftermath of World War II. It was the successor to the League of Nations, which had proved to be unsuccessful in resolving the conflicts leading up to World War II. The sheer destructiveness of the war reminded the world of the need for a peaceful forum for resolving international conflicts. According to its founding charter, the purposes of the United Nations are to maintain international peace and security, to develop friendly relations among nations, and to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems. The Security Council is composed of 15 members. 5 of them, the United Kingdom, France, China, Russia, and the US, are permanent members on the Council and can exercise veto power, which allows them to block any resolution or decision if they cast a negative vote. Another 10 members occupy rotating seats with 2-year terms. They do not exercise veto power. As you can see, the 5 countries with permanent seats on the Security Council hold a great deal of responsibility. And in 1945, when the Council was determined, these 5 countries were the obvious choice for the seats. They were the winning powers at the end of the war, and realistically, the only countries capable of playing this role. However, world politics has shifted dramatically since 1945, so why has the makeup of the Council stayed the same? Where we stand right now, the Security Council grossly misrepresents the realities of responsibility and power in the world. In order to better represent the current global situation, we need to remove the World War II great powers of France and Britain, and to bring the important contemporary voices of Brazil, Germany, India, and Japan to the table. According to globalpolicy.org, Asians make up 60% of the world population. Asia plays a crucial role in the integrated global economy, but they only occupy 1 permanent seat. According to the CIA World Factbook, Japan is the 4th largest economy in the world. Japan also plays a valuable role politically. They are a stable presence in the region, and they have embraced a peaceful constitution. India has also shown great potential. The Economic Times has reported that Indian economy has likely surpassed Japanese economy to become the world's 3rd largest. Politically, India is the world's largest democracy, and they are a diverse country. According to the CIA World Factbook, India is over 80% Hindu, and yet Prime Minister Manmohan Singh is a member of the minority Sikh religion. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh guided his country through a severe economic crisis, which began in 1991, and U.S. Secretary of State William Burns stated that Prime Minister Singh has demonstrated clear vision and steely determination as a leader, bringing benefit to India and to the rest of the world. Brazil has also shown exemplary leadership in South America, both economically and politically. Trading Economy cites Brazil as the 7th largest economy in the world. Brazil is an excellent neighbor. The Argentinian Foreign Minister Hector Timerman was quoted in the Buenos Aires Herald as describing the relationship between Brazil and Argentina as indestructible. The Global Information Network quotes Jose Rivera of the Latin American Caribbean Economic System as saying the Brazilian model has had a positive impact on how things can be done differently. Programs like these show real leadership and vision for the future. Germany presents a strong case for a permanent seat as well. Germany has emerged from the global recession the strongest. It is the economic center of Europe. They are the most powerful country in the Eurozone, and they are Europe's most populous nation. Opponents of this measure may argue that it's unwise to expand veto power, that choosing certain countries and not others to join will inflame regional tensions. Opponents of this measure may argue that it is wrong to remove Britain and France from their seats. But this measure will not diminish these countries' long-standing status in the world, their importance to Europe and to their global allies. The fact is, we can no longer afford to ignore the fact that world power has changed since 1945. If we are to solve the problems of an interconnected world and to deal with the complexities of global economies and technologies, with migrating people and illnesses and wars, we must acknowledge the actual distribution of political and economic power as exists today in 2013. Therefore, I urge you to vote affirmative on this resolution.
Do not clap. You save all applause until the debate is finally over when the closing statement has sounded. Thank you. Thank you very much for your restraint. That was 4 minutes and 46 seconds. We will now hear the opening statement from the other side.
The United Nations has 5 permanent members with veto power and 10 non-permanent members. The debate about reforming the UN security first started in 1993. One of the decisions of reform is whether to expand the UN security or not. If so, who should get the seats? Although there are many strong points in favor of expanding the UN security, there are numerous stronger and more important reasons for maintaining the current UN security as it is. There are 3 biggest reasons that we should not expand the UN security. First of all, more members with veto power can most likely cause additional difficulty with making it less efficient, which is already a problem the current permanent members faces, which is according to BBC monitoring former Soviet Union. Despite United States support for the other countries' bids for a seat in Security Council, their addition can create a problem to US. By admitting a few countries as permanent members, it will release a flood of many countries wanting a seat. If, for example, if India is brought in, the Pakistan will want a seat. So with so many new members, it's very hard for US to create a pro-upon coalitions in favor of resolution they want. And it's therefore an uncertainty that could threaten the US. Secondly, the current UN security permanent members have done nothing to deserve being eliminated or replaced, and still remain to be the most powerful country in the world. The United Kingdom represents a large population, such as the British Commonwealth of Nations, and India is also included. According to top World Economic from the HQ's directory, UK and France economy is still 2 of the top 10 countries, and possess strong and active militaries which wield nuclear weapons. Also, the opposition may argue that permanent member countries are inadequate to still be in the Security Council. But according to Global Policy Forum, in recent months, France has been a crucial role in Mali. The French intervention was critical in reversing things of Islamist militants, and their continued presence will be crucial as the stabilizing force that helps to ensure the future peace. Due to these factors, both countries continue to play an important role in maintaining world peace and regulations. The G4, which are Germany, Japan, Brazil, and India, do not have rich experience in Security Council as previous permanent members do. So no one can guarantee that the G4 can lead the UN the right way or prove to be more successful than the current permanent members. Third, the G4 countries have a few lot qualities. According to Brazil, seeking security from the national interest, that indicates that Brazil is still developing and devalues the military force, which is critical to enforce peace. So such a low military profile seems inconsistent to their permanent members. Japan doesn't get along well with its neighbors and lacks of political accomplishment. So it's hard to lead other countries. Both Japan and India overlap with China in the same regions, I think. plenty of the qualities can not fit in or qualify to be permanent members. Ultimately, there are strong justification which support maintaining the current union security council. Thank you.
Remember not to clap. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're waiting for the areas of debate. Now, in just a moment, we will hear the rebuttal. First, we'll have the rebuttal from the pro side. Please. That was 4 minutes and 50 seconds. 4 minutes, 50 seconds. Maybe again.
Let me begin by first addressing the idea that the addition of countries is going to make the Security Council less efficient. Originally, the G4 did want the veto, but a couple of years ago, they realized that wasn't going to work, so they dropped that demand. What this means is that the inclusion of additional countries is not going to reduce the efficiency of the Security Council, it will actually improve it, assuming that two countries, namely France and the United Kingdom, are either removed or consolidated. Next, let me talk about the so-called regional issues. It is true that India is in an area that is not terribly stable, but that's not a point against it, that's a point for it. If India is allowed into the Security Council, they can help represent a region that currently has no representation and help bring stability to that area. Additionally, Brazil, although there are some conflicts between it and Mexico and some other countries in South America, that area, again, does not have any representation currently. So the addition of Brazil would be beneficial to everyone involved. The idea that the current members are doing such a good job, while, if you look at it on the surface, seems true, is actually, if you dig deeper, is a fallacy. Let's go back to Rwanda in 1994, right before the Rwandan genocides. France, the US, and several other United Nations affiliated countries knew that something, maybe not a genocide, but something like it was going to happen, and they intentionally stepped back. Now let's fast forward to a couple of weeks ago. France and the United Kingdom prevented the European Union from extending their arms embargoes on Syrian rebels, which means that when that embargo expires, countries that may want to see Syria fall will be able to provide weapons to the rebels. While it is true that France and the United Kingdom are in the top 10 countries in terms of GDP, France being number 5 and the United Kingdom being number 7, the G4 also have a lot of economic clout. Japan is number 4th in the world for GDP. Japan is number 3. Germany is number 4, and Brazil is number 6. India is number 9. So it's not quite as economically powerful, but when you combine all of them together, they are significantly more economically stable and powerful than France and the United Kingdom. While it is true that the G4, relative to the current permanent members, do not have powerful militaries, Germany has, for the last since the beginning, at the end of World War II, has only engaged in peacekeeping operations. They have not intentionally gone into a war. India is number 3 on troop contributions to the United Nations peacekeeping forces, with 7,795 troops donated last year. These are official UN stats. Brazil donated 1,977 troops. France only donated 948. And the UK only donated 278. Gambia has donated more troops than the United Kingdom. Japan may have some struggles with its neighbors, but as Lucy said, Asia comprises 60% of the world's population, and they only have one representative. So in order to rectify the situation, Asia needs another representative, and the best representative currently is Additionally, allowing them a seat on the Security Council will allow them to fix the problems that are currently happening. Ban Ki-moon, the current Secretary General of the United States, the United Nations, has said that he is disappointed with the way the Security Council is working. He is a very vocal proponent of reform, which is why I think you should vote yes on this.
4 minutes and 58 seconds. We will now hear the rebuttal from the Khan side. You may begin.
Okay, so I would like to first address the problem of representation. I will agree that yes, the UN Security Council is underrepresented concerning the more modern world political powers. However, the UN Security Council permanent members, the current members as UK, UK, France, the US, all were chosen for the specific reason of being able to keep the peace. They were chosen for that exact reason. Lucy brought up a great point that yes, Brazil is a great candidate. They have a strong economy, and that is very true. However, Brazil voted against a round of sanctions against Iran and their nuclear program. Although they do have, their constitution states that they are prevented from creating atomic arsenal, they did vote against that sanction, and they also consider Iran a quote-unquote great partner. And so this shows that would it really be good to have Brazil as this kind of waffling player in the UN? We need someone who will be very stable and opinionated about their choices. The fact that also India is another great country and one of the G4 groups. It's true that they are a very great democracy, but considering that this is whether the US should vote for this resolution would be a bad decision, because the fact that the US is still supplying Pakistan with arms and fighter planes would create a big conflict between its relationship with supporting India as well as Pakistan. And having that conflict and tension between the two countries could also pull and involve the US in some armed conflict, which is something we would not like. By also expanding, going back to the point of expansion, although yes, it would be good to have more countries represented, it would also be another bad choice for the US because it would be harder for the US to create more coalitions for and against resolutions that they may or may not like within the Security Council. Griffin is right that there has been some recent conflicts between some of the UN security members, such as France. However, recently, France has been a critical component in the Mali conflict, where they have been a stabilizing force. And so presenting France or removing France at a lower level can send the wrong message that France is maybe not as stable or inadequate to be able to moderate the peace, which would send a wrong message and also result in armed conflict. Also a great economy, as I was saying earlier, but also they have a very devalued military. And although we don't want to suggest things such as having nuclear power and such, but it is inconsistent with the responsibility of a permanent member to have such a small focus on military, because one has to have a strong military such as the France and UK, which have large and active militaries, to be able to regulate and keep the peace. Finally, I think I would like to quote something. Although there's been a lot of talk about representation, and I know I've gone over that a lot, but quoting Cora MacDonald and Sir Patrick from the Council on Foreign Relations, they said, quote, "The UN Charter prescribes that a regional parity should be, at most, a secondary issue. The ability to advocate and defend international peace and security should, it says, be the primary concern. So I believe that we should have peace rather than representation, and that is what the initial council was decided for."
All right, now that was 5 minutes exactly. Now we can take some questions. So those who would like to ask a question of a specific person, raise your hand. I will call on you. So you're going to be the first question, you'll be the second question. Anybody over here? Neil, is that right? Oh, okay, Olivia will be the third question, and we'll see if we have time for anything more. So, again, to whom is your question directed? No, just can you stand up? Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned that like for instance they're really stabilizing power in Mali and that if they were to lose their seat that would send the wrong message and could result in armed conflicts. Who would those armed conflicts be with if that if we were with France?
So yeah, they have.
Stand up, please. You can stand up your seat.
So I was talking about in Mali, I guess there's a situation about by intervening, they have prevented and reversed, as I said earlier, advances by Islamist militants. And so by putting them maybe at a lower position or moving it, they could send this message that they're actually not such a stabilizing force in this issue. And there could be conflict between the Islamist militants. Sorry.
Okay, good. You may respond. One person on both sides may respond to this too. Do you have anything to say about France? You do not. All right. Please take note of that. They had a chance to respond, but they chose not to. Who had the second question was Sam. Yeah. Yeah, stand up, and your question is directed to
Griffin.
Griffin.
My question is, you mentioned that the inclusion of additional countries would not affect the veto process. My question is, how often have Security Council members used the veto power? Is it a common occurrence for a nation to want to veto a proposal made in the UN? And that's my question.
Well, so we can find it. Just recently, Russia and China vetoed a resolution on this current Syrian conflict. It was just a couple of weeks ago, actually. It's not common, but it happens often enough that it's important that the people don't have a veto. Yeah.
Somebody on the opponents want to respond to this about vetoes?
Just to answer your question, Sam, it is a relevant sort of power that the countries in the P5 have right now. And as Griffin said, it has been used very recently. Just know that that power is really, really influential. And it's a dangerous tool for some countries to have. Okay.
Yes, as long as you make quick use of this.
Okay. Brazil voted against a round of sanctions for Iran and their nuclear power. So that was a power that they could obtain if they did get the nuclear power. Iran could find support. The countries like India and Africa.
All right, I think you had enough time.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Third question, Lydia, is for whom?
Sorry. You mentioned the Rwandan genocide and how people would step in before France in the UK, or they decided to go in and help. But in terms of situations like that happening again, why would you assume that the G4 would be more inclined to get involved or stuff like that? Like, why would they be better than
It's not an assumption that the new countries would be necessarily better at it. It was just to call into question France's track record as a member of the Security Council, and I mean, being in such an important position, and it's their job basically to protect world peace, and the fact that they stepped away from that because I think the reason was that their government couldn't handle it at the time. It's just not something that I would want from someone who's supposed to be leading the real estate.
Thank you. Is there a response from the other side? Yes.
Can you repeat most of it again?
Is that in the case of the Rwandan genocide and how France was trying to step in, why would the people be better or more inclined to prevent stuff like that happening again?
Okay. So I would just say that that's another great point. We have no idea how the G4 or any other countries who want permanent seats will behave in the Security Council. And so the current permanent members have, although they have done some missteps, they've done a pretty well job, and I don't see why we should fix a system that isn't broken.
Can I ask you a question? No, you may not. We might have one final question from the audience if we can get one. Jack.
Yeah, it's either side or
Oh, you pick one.
all right. Your side is claiming that France and England have, or the UK, have stronger militaries than the G4 countries. However, the G4 countries, as stated by that side, have donated more troops to the UN for security reasons. Did you have a response to that?
I guess I would say that they both have very good points, and that they are both very strong qualities for keeping the peace. And as brought up earlier, we don't know about the decisions they'll make, and that is great. I mean, sorry, and it's great that they have like troops and everything, but we just don't know whether we just don't know how they will possibly use the troops or like use the power, I guess.
On the pro side, a response?
Yes. Germany is actually still in Afghanistan to help with peacekeeping missions. France has left. And even if these countries who we were proposing to add to the council were not involved in a lot of military action, the primary goal of the United Nations is to maintain peace. And it is a good idea to have countries that have an emphasis on peaceful conflicts, such as Japan, instead of countries who instead turn to military.
All right, thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to the closing statement. The closing statements are 2 to 3 minutes. So the pro will begin with a closing statement. It will be followed by silence from the audience. And then the con will have a closing statement. And when that is finished, you may applaud. So when you reach those who are making the closing statements, when you reach 2 minutes, you want to hold up the 1 minute card. You have 1 minute left. Okay. So the pro. And you'll give it 30 seconds. Yes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. Just one moment. Maybe again.
Sure, security and stability is what we want from the United Nations. The 500 million members are having the responsibility to keep the world peace. However, the world has changed significantly since the last 16 years. The 5 permanent members were chosen to keep the peace after World War II. Should this Security Council not work, should issues become resolved, we will only the beginning. Therefore, a fair representation in the United Nations during the decision-making process is a very important element. And also, in addition, Brazil has since gone back on its support of Iran. It will not influence the UN sanctions to its region. And Brazil is the country that do not primarily present at war, so it's a very important element to keep it for peace also. So for the purpose of ensuring the fundamental objectives of the United Nations, it's essential to reshape the UN Security Council to meet the current global society. Politics is not about maintaining the same structure suddenly, but about accommodating changes that happens around the global society. The world needs to hear more different voices, but not an oligarchy. If diverse voices are being heard, better decisions will be made, and it will be more persuasive to the majorities of the country, and that also represents the ultimate decision of the world.
That was 1 minute and 58 seconds. We will now have the closing statement for the council. You may begin.
While compelling arguments have been made by both sides, there are good reasons that we should vote against this resolution. To start out, more members in the United Nations Security Council will increase the difficulty of decision making, despite the veto power. According to the BBC, the Security Council already has many problems with this sort of lack of efficiency. And in addition to that, if you give more countries this power, the surrounding countries, such as Pakistan, will also want to have this seat in the UNS, the Security Council. It's very dangerous. Secondly, it is very important to keep in mind the U.S. interest, which is what this resolution is about. For us, it is important to have a big say in the Security Council to maintain world peace, seeing as we are the world's largest economy. The current members of the UK and France, while they may have had some slip-ups, they have proven to do a good job of keeping peace in some cases. They still are very powerful in the military aspect and remain to be in the top 10 world economies, with France at number 5 and the UK at number 7. As I said, the military is still very strong for both of these countries, with France representing a very large force in Mali and the UK around the world. Lastly, these G4 countries have some very awkward deficiencies. Brazil is still a very young country, coming out of a revolution only a couple decades ago. They devalue their military and retain little to no nuclear arms, which is very important for maintaining peace in a large region such as South America. India is also in a very unstable region with a neighbor such as Pakistan, who also has nuclear power. According to Intellifax, this region is the likeliest flashpoint for a nuclear war. Japan as well has neighbor problems. With the Korean Peninsula and China, they face a lot of troubles, and I don't think they are a very good candidate. That is why we should vote against this resolution. Thank you.